Hi everyone, this is Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. This is block number 4 of the Beginner's Botanical Quilt. There will be 9 different blocks in this quilt. To view all of the blocks in this quilt that have been released so far, play this video until a green screen appears and then click on the link in the upper left hand corner. I recommend you use up your scrap fabric before buying new fabric. I also recommend you buy anywhere from 1/8 to 1/3 yard or buy fat quarters if you do not have scraps. So let's get started. This is the block layout. In each area you will see letters in there. That identifies the fabrics that go in there. So letter A is the petal fabric. Letter B is for the leaves and the stem. Letter C is for your background fabric, which can be either a white or a cream colored. For the petals, you'll need 1 3.5-inch square, 3 4.5-inch squares. Fabric B, the leaf and stem, 2 4.5-inch squares, 1 6.5-inch squares. For the background, which I recommend again a white or a cream, 3 3.5-inch squares, 3 4.5-inch squares, and 2 6-inch squares. The fabrics that you need to draw lines through from corner to corner are listed on the left-hand side of the screen. So place your ruler, line it up from corner to corner, and draw lines. And remember, you're drawing the lines on the back side of the fabric. Pair the 4.5-inch squares up. So in this stack right here, I have A and C fabric, which is the background with the petal. You should have 2 of those. These are 4.5-inch squares. On this one you have your A and B fabric, which is the leaf with the petal fabric. Again, 4.5-inch square, only 1. And then on this one you have B and C fabric. When bringing the squares together, make sure you bring front sides together. On all of them, you're going to go over on each side of the line 1/4 inch out and stitch across here, and then on this side. Again, do that on all of them. After you have finished stitching, take a ruler and place it on the drawn line. Then cut in half. And do that on all of them. Then, after you have cut all of them in half, press the seam on the back and then unfold and press on top. And when you're pressing these, you want to press the seam towards the darkest fabric. After you finished pressing, square all of them to size 3.5 inches square. On your ruler, there's a diagonal line that goes corner to corner. And you're going to center this 3.5-inch area on the inside of this square. So first, place the diagonal line down on top of the seam. And make sure you have a little bit of fabric extending past all of the edges. That includes this 3.5-inch ruler lines. Trim one side, then trim the other side. Then take this corner and bring it over here. Now place the 3.5-inch lines on the 2 previously cut edges. And at the same time, keep the diagonal line on top of your seam. Then cut the last 2 sides. And again, do all of your half square triangles like this. To make the stem, you'll need 1 square 6.5 inches of your green fabric and 2 background squares that are 6 inches. On both of the background squares, draw a line going from corner to corner. And again, do it on both. Bringing front sides together, align the edges on these 2 sides right here. Then stitch on this side of the line, very close to the line, but not on top of the line. Place the other 6-inch square on top, bringing front sides together, and align them up on this edge here and here. Stitch on this side of the line. Don't stitch on top of the line, but very, very close to it. Take your ruler and trim it off to where you have just a 1/4 inch of fabric. So place your 1/4 inch line on your stitch line and cut. Then turn it, unfold this, and place the 1/4 inch line on your stitch line and cut. Then press your seams, and as you press your seams, press them towards the inside area of the stem. Lay out all of your pieces in this order. The first section that you're going to put together is this one down in here. So stitch these 2 together, bring them front sides together, stitch a 1/4 inch, bring these 2 front sides together and stitch a 1/4 inch. Press the seams, and as you press these seams, you want these seams to go in the opposite direction of each other. I suggest on this one you press the seam towards the leaf fabric, and then this one here press in the opposite direction. Bring them front sides together, line up the seam, and make sure that the seam is real close together and that the seam on top is in the opposite direction and the seam on the bottom. I would put a pin to hold your seams while you are stitching, then stitch 1/4 inch seam all along there. After stitching, press the seam on the back side, then unfold it and press on top and push this seam towards this side of the flower. Then take your stem, bring it on top and stitch 1/4 inch seam all along here. Keeping them front sides together, press this seam on the back side, then unfold and then press the seam on top and push the seam towards this side. Stitch this row together, doing a 1/4 inch seam, and then this row together. So remember, just bring your blocks front sides together and stitch, then add on the next block and stitch, then add on the next block and stitch, and then go to row 2 and do the same thing. After stitching the squares together in each row, press the seams. When you're pressing the seams on these top 2 rows, you want to make sure that this row here is going this way, because this row right here is going towards your right, this is going towards your left, and the top one is going towards your right. After you've completed all the pressing, stitch the rows together. So bring front sides together, make sure that the seams on the bottom are going in the opposite direction. Lock them in nice and tight. After you've got them lined up, I highly recommend you put a pin there to hold and put a pin at all of the seams, then stitch 1/4 inch along here. Bring the last row on top and line up your seams. And again, make sure the seam on the bottom is going in the opposite direction than the seam on top. And again, I recommend you pin those seams. After pinning all the way across, go ahead and stitch 1/4 inch seam. After stitching, then press your seams. And as you're pressing the seams, this middle seam I'm pressing going up this way. The very top seam I'm pressing down. And one of the reasons why you have specific directions to press things is that you don't want the seam to show in the light colored areas. So whenever possible, it's not always possible, but whenever possible, try to do your seams pressed towards the darkest fabric. The last step that you want to do is to take your 12.5 inch square ruler, place it down on top to see if your block is squared. Now most of the time they're not perfectly squared, but what you want to check for is it way off? In other words, you've got 1/2 inch of fabric sticking out on all sides, or even 1/4 inch of fabric sticking out all over the place. Then you need to go back and figure out what happened. But most of the time when you're done, once you get used to building these, you might just have some pieces sticking out here and there. I never do my final squaring until all my blocks are completed for the quilt. So in order for you to understand what I'm talking about at this point, click on the link in the upper right hand corner, and it goes over in great detail how to square all your blocks for a quilt. Remember, if you need to see all the blocks that have been released to date for this quilt, play this video until a green screen appears, and then click on the link in the upper left hand corner. Also on that screen will be links to other quilt projects. If you like this video, please click on thumbs up, and also click on share to share this video with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, then click on that red button down there in the lower right hand corner of your screen. Click on that little bell and then enter your email address so that you'll receive future email notifications about my latest video. If you don't seem to be receiving those notifications, go to your cell phone, click on settings, and set notifications in the on position. I'm Cheryl. This is Manny. Thanks again for coming by. See you next time. Happy sewing!